NBA rosters change from year to year, and nowadays, there are plenty of stacked teams. We have had some super teams recently as well as dynamic duos in the league. Some have won rings and been successful, and some didn't pan out or never got that championship they had planned for. Today, we look at the early 2000s Sacramento Kings and how they are the best all-time team that never won a ring. Yo, what's good everyone? Just wanted to say thanks for tuning into the video, and I hope you guys enjoy. The year is 2000. The Sacramento Kings have become one of the most exciting and fun to watch teams in the league. Besides the fact they are entertaining, they are becoming more than just a fun team to watch. They are a successful team. With Jason Williams, aka White Chocolate, putting on a show every night for the Kings, along with one of the best players in the league, Chris Webber, being in his prime, the Kings were one of the most loved teams in the NBA. The Kings ended the 1999-2000 season with a record of 44-38, which isn't too impressive, right? But they had something they really did. Something about their offense was just different. The way they passed the ball, the speed they moved at. They led the league in points per game and pace. Chris Webber was a household name at this point, averaging almost 25 and 11 a game, but he was only one of 6 players on the team that averaged double digits. Jason Williams had his crowd-pleasing plays and averaged over 7 dimes a game. Head coach Rick Adelman seemed to have something brewing in Sacramento. Besides Williams and Webber, the Kings also had a very young promising shooter in Peja Stojakovic, a veteran and proven Vlade Divac down low, as well as other quality players. Unfortunately, the Kings had to play Kobe and Shaq and the Lakers in the playoffs in the first round. After quickly falling down 0-2, it looked as if the Kings were just not good enough to beat the Lakers. But then they bounced back with 2 wins on their home court in front of their great fans. Back in the day, there was a best of 5 series, and the Lakers took Game 5 at home to end the Kings' chances of a come-from-behind win. The Lakers went on to win the championship and were clearly the team to beat going into the next season. The following year, the Kings made huge strides as fans had hoped. The Kings upgraded their team and it paid off, acquiring players like Doug Christie and Bobby Jackson, drafting Hedo Turkoglu, and the huge emerging shooter in Peja Stojakovic, along with Chris Webber playing like an MVP candidate. I mean, the Kings were easily one of the best teams in the league. Webber averaged an insane 27 points and 11 rebounds a game, while Peja averaged 20 a game and shot over 40% from 3. As a team, once again, the Kings led the league in points per game and were second in pace. They also had a top 10 defense and rebounded the ball well. They finished the season 55-27, and they finished the year 1 game behind the Lakers as the 3 seed in the Western Conference. After a first round win, the Kings once again met up with the Lakers in the conference semifinals. This time, the Kings simply had no answer for Shaq and Kobe and ended up being swept. The Lakers went back-to-back winning the championship once again, and many wondered if the Kings, even with the talented team they had, if they had enough pieces moving forward to be able to dethrone the powerhouse Lakers, who had now knocked them out of the playoffs 2 years in a row. The Kings decided they needed to make a move, and not an easy one. Jason Williams was a highlight reel player, but was not always the most consistent and was considered immature by some. The Kings decided to make a trade to hopefully push their team to the next level and make a serious push for the NBA Finals. They ended up giving up White Chocolate as part of a trade and acquired Mike Bibby. Mike Bibby was a more consistent and better player overall. It was not a move that many fans were particularly excited about, since Jason Williams was so exciting and had so many years ahead of him, and he was a fan favorite, let's be honest. But this was a move that Rick Adelman would not regret. So here we are. This is the season we most notably remember this team for. Going into the 2001-2002 season, Chris Webber had an ankle injury that seemed like it would be a huge speed bump to start the season for the Kings. Despite Webber missing the first 20 games, the Kings still started off 15-5 without him. The main reason was the Kings' backcourt was new and highly improved. Mike Bibby and Doug Christie fit right into the offense without skipping a beat. Once the Kings finally had Webber back, this team was looking like a real problem for the rest of the NBA. Mike Bibby had a very productive and consistent season, averaging about 14 points and 5 assists a game while shooting 45% from the field and 37% from 3. Doug Christie had probably his best season of his entire career for the Kings. He was an All-NBA defender that year and really could match up against the best scorers in the NBA. He was no slouch on offense either, averaging 12 points a game, shooting 46% from the field and 35% from 3, and was really able to keep the floor stretched while also defending the other team's best player on the other side of the floor every single night. One of the main reasons Christie was able to get open looks was because the man playing small forward for the Kings, Peja Stojakovic, was a goddamn certified sniper. With Bibby and Webber running the pick and roll often, Peja had the spacing to get open and was able to drop buckets. He averaged 21 points a game, shooting 48% from the field and 41% from 3. Like I said, a sniper. But we're not done yet. Next is Chris Webber. Webber dominated once again this year. After missing the first 20 games, he came right back at his fullest form, averaging 24.5, 10 rebounds a game, and just under 5 assists a game for the year while shooting 50% from the field. Webber continued to prove he was among the best big men in the league. Vlade Divac rounded out the starting lineup and was no slouch at the center position. He averaged 11 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists per game, but was much more valuable than his numbers showed. He was a veteran that provided some great leadership for a young overall team. He was a great defender in a weird way considering he took a lot of charges for how big this man was. He was overall consistent at both ends of the floor and gave the Kings some solid experience on their team. This amazing starting five was also backed by a pretty deep bench. The Kings' sixth man was point guard Bobby Jackson, and not far behind him was a very young Hedo Turkoglu. They both averaged over 10 a game off the bench and provided quality minutes on a nightly basis, while Scott Pollard came in often and provided a valuable big man role as well. The Kings went a remarkable 61-21 on the year and had the best record in the entire NBA. They were first in the NBA in pace, second in the NBA in points per game, and first in points differential. Their defense was no slouch either at all and was easily considered top 10 in the league, but their offense was just something special. They were right there at the top in almost every offensive category you could think of. In an era of a lot of ISO basketball, the Kings had their own brand of passing and always moving around on offense, always getting good looks. They really had something special, and this offense will always be remembered. The Kings faced off in the first round of the playoffs against a veteran Utah Jazz team. The series was hard fought and not a guarantee for the Kings, but they ended up winning 3-1. Chris Webber and Peja Stojakovic carried the offense to the second round, both averaging over 21 a game in the series. In the conference semifinals, the Kings squared off with the Dallas Mavericks, who had Steve Nash and Dirk. The Kings were able to take down the Mavs 4-1, even though Peja Stojakovic missed the last 2 games. This series really showed why the Kings traded for Mike Bibby, as he proved to be playoff ready and stepped up huge this series. Bibby averaged about 22 points and 7 assists a game for the series and silenced anyone that was left that was still questioning why they traded Jason Williams for him. Next up was the conference finals. And who else would be there but the back-to-back defending champions in the Los Angeles Lakers? Was this finally the year that the Kings dethroned Kobe and Shaq? This series, there's so many ways to introduce this series, I don't even know how to start. Let's just say this series lived up to the hype, and then way more. This series is considered by some to be the best NBA playoff series of all time and easily the most controversial. With Peja still hurt, Hedo Turkoglu was penciled into the starting lineup for game 1 of the series, and the Kings hoped that he could manage to keep the offense in rhythm. The team split the first 2 games in Sacramento, and then the Kings took Game 3 on the road. It was easy to tell this series had the potential to go 7 games from the jump. Game 4 was an all-time playoff game. The Kings started the game by dropping 40 points in the first quarter and really threatened to take full control of the series. The Lakers slowly but surely clawed their way back from down 20 early, and it was a game down the stretch. The Lakers were down 2 with 11 seconds left and the ball. Kobe drove, missed a floater, Shaq then missed the tip back. Vlade Divac slapped the shit out of the ball out of there and somehow, someway, directly into Robert Horry's hands at the 3-point line, where he squared up and he knocked down one of the most memorable shots in NBA history. He essentially saved the Lakers from going down 3-1 and most likely losing the series. He kept the hopes for a three-peat alive. Game 5 was somehow just as exciting. The Lakers played hard all game, but ultimately, it was the Kings who would come up clutch in the big moment this time. Mike Bibby drilled a clutch shot in the last 10 seconds after a burly brick wall screen from Chris Webber that buried Derek Fisher. The Kings were now up 3-2 in the series, and they just had to win one more game to go to the NBA Finals. Was this finally their time? Game 6. Game 6 of the 2002 NBA Western Conference Finals is one of the most memorable games in the history of any sport for its controversy. Alright, let's do this shit. Game 6 was yet again another great close game in this insane series. But down the stretch, things started becoming very suspect. Basically, in the fourth quarter, the Lakers shot 27 free throws. 27. It was like every time the Lakers came down the floor, there was a foul called on the Kings. Some were clear, but there was so many that I don't know. It's like every single call that could have went either way went the Lakers' way. And there was plenty of calls that were on the Kings that just didn't make sense. They just didn't make sense at all. In today's NBA, there are plenty of games that fans believe are called one-sided, but this game, everyone noticed, and everyone felt the same way. A lot of experts around the sport considered this the worst and most one-sided NBA officiating performance of all time in any sport. The Lakers ended up winning this game for obvious reasons, and was it rigged? I mean, I really can't confidently say it wasn't. And not to mention the whole Tim Donaghy saga that came out later, it was almost sort of admitted that this game was rigged from the tip-off, which was obviously denied by David Stern, but I'll save my comments about Stern for another day. Despite the pretty much obvious fact the refs caused the Game 7, there was still a game to play and a series to win. Despite the anger and frustration the Kings had after Game 6, they still came out Game 7 ready to take down the Lakers. The final game of the series once again was a playoff classic and really just capped off this unbelievable series. Mike Bibby and Webber played terrific, but it just wasn't enough. The game went into overtime and the Lakers pulled it out. The Kings were just not hitting the shots they needed to win the deciding game. I mean, they shot 2 of 20 from 3 over the course of the game, and ultimately poor shooting may have cost them the game. The Lakers moved on to the finals and ended up completing the three-peat, while Kings fans were stuck wondering, what if? What if Peja was healthy all series? Would it have ended sooner? What if Robert Horry missed that buzzer beater and the Kings would have been up 3-1? What if Game 6 wasn't rigged and the Lakers didn't shoot 27 free throws in the fourth quarter? There's so many what ifs. Some people believe that the Kings were meant to be champions that year. Others believe the NBA just wouldn't let it happen. However you look at it, the Kings still had a great team and they had a great coach, and they had to regroup and look ahead to the next year for this promising franchise. Well, the following year, the Kings were once again one of the best teams in the league. But sadly, in the playoffs, Chris Webber suffered a season-ending knee injury in the conference semis against the Mavs, and They ultimately lost in 7 games, and this kind of became the beginning of the end. Weber was never quite the same after he finally came back from the injury, and the team gradually got a little worse each season, never getting past the second round of the playoffs. Over the next couple of years, the Kings lost some of the guys from that 0-2 team, and the franchise really went downhill. By the 06-07 season, they had a new coach, didn't make the playoffs, and Mike Bibby was the only player left from that 0-2 starting lineup. They have had some interesting rosters over the years, but to this day, they have not reached the playoffs since losing head coach Rick Adelman. He is considered one of the most underrated coaches of all time, and I don't disagree with that. He created one of the most entertaining and efficient teams in the league for that small stretch of years. The early 2000s Kings did not last very long, but when you consider all the teams they faced every year, I mean, they faced some great all-time teams we remember on the regular, and the era they were playing in and how good they became in a short stretch of time. They were those dudes, and they played the game like no other team in the league. This team occasionally feels forgotten about, but to me, the early 2000 Sacramento Kings, especially the 0-2 Kings, were the best team all time that did not win the finals, and I will stick to that. If they had beat the Lakers and went on to win the finals, and if Chris Webber never had got that knee injury that ended up derailing the rest of his career, who knows what this team would have been able to accomplish, especially looking at how Kobe and Shaq ended up splitting up and the Lakers didn't end up winning a final again for years. But on the other hand, there were plenty of emerging teams at the time, and who knows if the Kings would have been able to compete with teams such as, the Spurs, who had built a dynasty over the next few years, and other teams for years to come. At the end of the day, the early 2000 Sacramento Kings should never be forgotten about, and that 01-02 team should be remembered forever for how great they really were. I really hope you guys like this video. This video has probably been the most enjoyable one I have made so far, and I hope it was as enjoyable for you all to watch. Plenty of more videos coming in the future, so as always, until next time, peace.